175. Welcome to your second video. So today we're going to talk about unemployment. So this is the introduction of the labor market. So we look at the labor market because we want to know certain statistics. So economists use the performance of the labor market using unemployment stats. Basically, you can tell, is your economy producing more? Do we have more people working? How's our labor force? Who consists of our labor force? And there's different topics that we can look at. So we're going to talk about different sources of unemployment, different policies that are implemented, and how the government uses these policies to lower unemployment. So first, we're going to talk about the natural rate of unemployment. Natural rate of unemployment is what we naturally see. So on average, it's less than 5%. That's always the goal for our economy, is to have unemployment less than 5%. There's different measures of unemployment, but the one we're going to focus on, natural rate, is without any cyclical changes. So if we're in a downturn or if we're in a huge inflationary period, we do not count those. So cyclical, any time you hear cyclical unemployment, this is caused due to economic downturn. So something we could see in the near future because of COVID-19 or coronavirus is the increase in cyclical unemployment, because during a recessionary time, we do see an increase of people being laid off and people filing for unemployment and so forth. Now, the institution that carries out these statistics is the BLS, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, what they do, they use the current population survey to categorize all surveyed adults that meet the criteria. Now, the criteria is very important. It's individuals that are 16 years and older. They are taken into account for our unemployment measures. Now, they're divided into three specific categories: employed, unemployed, and not in the labor force. That's the answer to your first question on your worksheet. Make sure you put that down. Now we'll talk about certain formulas that we're going to use. We'll also talk about different types of unemployment and a little bit about labor unions, minimum wage, and why individuals pay their workers more, as well as a practice problem. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the natural rate is less than 5%. That's what we usually strive for. Anything greater than that is a glaring issue that we need to solve. Some formulas you're going to need to know for this chapter are the labor force, so how to calculate labor force. It's the number of employed plus the number of unemployed. So I'll give you an output, and you need to calculate what's our labor force based on those numbers. Now, our unemployment rate, or I just got lazy and didn't write it all out. So unemployment rate, it's the number of unemployed divided by your labor force multiplied by 100. This is going to tell us the percentage of our labor force, the people that are actually willing and able to work, that are searching for work, how much of them are, or does this rate consist of? So if our rate is less than 5%, we know that 5% of our labor force is unemployed, or they're looking for work. So again, we want to know this. We want to know how many people are willing and able to work and still searching. Now, labor force participation rate. This is another important category because we want to know how many people are actually working out of our total adult population. So a higher value of labor force participation, meaning more people are working out of your adult population, meaning you could assume that your overall GDP is higher because more people are working, more people are producing, and so forth. The lower number, meaning less you're producing. So it's labor force divided by your adult population multiplied by 100. So again, labor force is people that are a number of employed plus unemployed divided by your adult population. So I'll give you outputs that have all this information. You just need to memorize the formulas, plug them all in, and you should calculate these separately. All right, so now this is our first practice problem. Here I give you a little output, and I'm asking you to calculate labor force, unemployment rate, and labor force participation rate. So you have the formulas, you just need to plug this in. So at any point in the video, you can pause it and do the practice problems on the side, and then check your answers in a bit. So total population is 195.4, adult population is 139.7, number of unemployed 5.7, number of employed is 92.3, and these are all in millions. So just make sure you remember that. So labor force, the formula is the number of unemployed plus employed. So it's going to be 92.3 plus 5.7, which is going to give us 98 million. So that's our labor force. Now we want to calculate our unemployment rate. Our unemployment rate is the number of unemployed individuals divided by labor force multiplied by 100. So it's 5.7 divided by 98 million multiplied by 100, and you should get 5.82%. Again, we're just using our output and we're dividing it through. Now we're going to calculate labor force participation rate. Now the formula is labor force divided by adult population multiplied by 100. So our labor force, again, we know this, 98 million divided by our adult population, which is 139.7 multiplied by 100. What you're going to get is somewhere around 70%. Now, what this is saying is 70% of your adult population is working. Now, this is a good thing. You want this number to be high. Because it's high, it's showing that more people are working, more people are a part of the labor force. Whether it's employed or unemployed, we still have a large percentage of our adult population working. We want to have this. All right, so after that practice problem, you should know how to calculate the different statistics. So labor force participation, unemployment, and your labor force overall. So now we're going to talk about the three different types of unemployment that we look at. So we have cyclical, which we talked about is through economic downturn, which is bad. Cyclical is the worst type of unemployment. It's because of a downturn. Now, the other one is structural, and the last one is frictional. So we'll talk about structural and frictional. Structural unemployment is caused due to a change in the overall structure of the economy. So something we can think about is, let's just go back 200 years. The United States was a predominantly an agricultural based economy. So through this, throughout time, we started changing our economy with time because we had new technologies, we had new products that we invested in, new firms, new innovation, all of these things, and we changed our overall structure of the economy. So now we're not as much as an agricultural-based economy, we're much more service-based. So because of that, we did lose some jobs in the agricultural field. Now, another example would be when you go to the grocery store. Now, what you see, or even at fast food restaurants, you see self-checkout or a kiosk. Basically, you can do all the functions that a cashier could do by yourself. Now, because there's been an overall change in the structure, we don't need cashiers, so their jobs become irrelevant. Now, their jobs need to be transferred to a different sector or a different field. So those jobs are lost because of a change in structure. So because we have self-checkout, those cashiers, they're losing their jobs because of structural unemployment. We're changing the overall structure of this industry. There's a change in structure, change in how things are done. Now we lose jobs. Now the next one is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is basically the time it takes between you finding your next job. So let's just say you graduate and you apply for jobs, you apply to 50 jobs. You don't get any callbacks for 3 months, which is a true story. That actually happened to me. So 3 months, you get no callback from any job. Now, because of this time period, this frictional time period, the time between matching you with the actual job, that is problematic. So we do look at unemployment through frictional changes, so how long it takes between matching you with the job that you actually want. Now, there's some other things that can cause frictional changes as well, or frictional unemployment. So let's just say you get a job offer in NorCal. So Silicon Valley, there's a firm that offers you $200,000, great benefits, and so forth. Now, you can't just up and leave right this very moment because it takes time to move. It takes time to find an apartment, get paperwork. It's the time period between you and you actually starting the job. So there is frictional changes in the economy. Sometimes it takes time to relocate. That also is added into frictional unemployment. Another example would be when, I just blanked. So frictional employment, another example would be when we see unemployment benefits. So let's say you get unemployment insurance. Now, because you got laid off, you're entitled to a certain percentage of your salary by your employer. So let's just say you get $500 a month. Let's say on average you were making $450 at your job. Now, as you can see, the unemployment insurance, the benefit of collecting unemployment insurance is much greater than actually going out to work. If you were just making $450 at work and you're getting paid $500 now, there's more incentive to go out and just collect the unemployment. So this is where the incentives play a role. Now, the government's goal is to always reduce these incentives to collect this unemployment insurance because you don't want individuals to take advantage of this and not work. So the whole goal of it is to provide them with some form of income in the time period. So this time period is usually 6 months or 5 to 6 months. And the goal is for them to seek a job in that time period. So in that time period, people are still supposed to be applying for jobs. It's not meant to be collected for the rest of your life and so forth. Again, there's rules and regulations set in stone for this. Now, if you increase the benefits, this is going to increase the frictional unemployment. More people, it's going to take longer for people to match with these jobs because there's incentive not to, because the benefit is high. All right, so another concept we're going to talk about is the market for labor. So we've kind of talked about this in class before. We have wages on our Y, we have our quantity of labor on our X. Our demand is now firms demand labor. Now households, we supply labor. Now we're willing to work for a certain wage and firms are willing to hire at a certain wage as well, or a price. So in this case, this is equilibrium. At $10, 1,000 people are willing to work. This is efficient. Now, we talked about minimum wage before in class. When we have minimum wage, we have an inefficiency. Now, economists are against these inefficiencies because when you increase minimum wage, we have a labor surplus. This labor surplus is also called unemployment. Now, unemployment is not always bad, but in this case, it's not good either. So because we increase the price to, let's just say, $15 an hour, this gap between is the labor surplus. This is unemployment. So labor surplus equals unemployment. Now, we've said that this isn't good, but also in class we've talked about why it is good. It's good because it gives individuals a higher wage. They can use this for other skills and eventually move on to a different job. Again, just helping individuals. That's the goal of the government. It's not to pick people out and not help them. So now we're also going to talk about unions. Now, unions operate the same way as minimum wage. A union is basically a collective group that bargains for higher wages, better benefits, and so forth. Now, unions also cause an inefficiency. Now, when we talk about inefficiencies, most economists are against this because, again, it's driving a wage higher. Now, we'll talk about why it's good and why it's bad. Now, so unions are good if you're a part of it. If you're not a part of it, basically, you're kind of screwed. So in this case, you get the higher wages. You get the better benefits. Now, if you're on the outside looking in, it's not looking good for you because of this higher wages, because this firm has to agree to these unions, they can't be hired. So other people that aren't a part of this union, they can't be hired. This creates unemployment as well. So it becomes more selective. You have a labor surplus, very similar to minimum wage laws. So with a union, you get better benefits, better wages, job security, and so forth. If you're part of it and you've been in it for a while, that's really good. If you're not, it's going to be tough to get into it. Again, a firm doesn't want to hire more workers, paying them a higher wage. Again, the goal is to minimize your cost, maximize your profit. If they're paying much more in terms of labor, it's not efficient for them. So this is why they cut back on their hiring. So there is inefficiency because of this. Now, there's another example that we're going to talk about. It's called efficiency wage theory. So basically what this is you pay somebody higher than the equilibrium wage. Now, why would you want to pay somebody more than the equilibrium wage? Now, for example, let's just say you work a minimum wage job right now. So whatever job you have right now, let's just say you're getting paid minimum wage. Now, if you are willing to work, or if your employer comes to you and says, here, I'm going to pay you double of what you're making right now, would you be pretty happy? For the most part, everyone would be really happy. Now, because of this, again, it's a theory that some people might work better. They might have more incentive. You might be able to afford better things now. You come into work happy. You're more productive. You care more about your work. You're valued higher because you get paid more. Now, those are a couple of examples of efficiency wage theory. Now, some firms do this. Now, if you do get paid more, you might have more incentive to work better. You might show up earlier. You might go the extra mile because you're getting paid more. That's why individuals and firms implement this policy. If you pay somebody more than the average, it's good on your end. Now, it's good also because if you pay them with better benefits, they're more healthy. Or if you pay them more, they can use that money for to go to the doctor. If they're healthy, if they're less sick, they can work longer. Now, again, this is also good for the firm as well. If you're more productive as a worker because you're getting paid more, the firm overall benefits as well because you're providing them with some form of value. That's why they're paying you more. So efficiency wage theory is if you pay somebody more, you get more benefit out of them. So it's a win-win for both sides. You're more productive at work or you're healthier, and we can keep you around longer and so forth. Now, let's just say if you weren't getting paid, or if you were just getting paid the average, let's just say you're not happy. A way to make you happy is just getting you paid more. And you might stay longer, less turnover, more productivity. There's more incentive to stay, more incentive to produce and help the firm. So that's why we look at efficiency wage theory. But because we pay above the equilibrium wage, so in your head, just think about the labor market. Since we pay higher than the equilibrium, you'll see it in efficiency as well. If we pay our workers more, you're going to have a labor surplus or unemployment. So that's the downside or the trade-off to having using the efficiency wage theory. All right, so that's all of unemployment, the major key concepts. If you guys have questions, drop a comment, email me. We're going to have virtual meetings this week. All this stuff is going to be covered on your worksheets, on the slides. I'm going to be posting videos like this throughout the semester, whatever we have left. Again, if you have questions, reach out. I'm here to help you. I know it's a trying time, but my goal is to help you understand and pass this class. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you guys. I hope you have a good day.